in that. Just as a suggestion, as a gift to yourself, look up the book, The Abundance Book by John Randolph Price. And if you bother to get the book, then bother to do the 40-day plan, exactly as he suggests in the book, and enjoy the life-changing experience that provides for you. My life became magical because right when I turned about 40, I did that 40-day plan and it was life-changing for me. So for your birthday.
The elevator chimed. That sound ordinary every day meant absolutely nothing to most of us. But on that morning, to that crew in that hallway, it meant the beginning of total meltdown. No yelling, no chaos, just silence. And then 4 quiet words from Robyn Brown that flipped the entire day, the entire episode, maybe even the whole franchise upside down. Hi friends, I'm Helena, and welcome back to TLC's Sister Wives News. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that button because things are turning fast and messy. And trust me, you'll want to stay locked in. Also, tell me in the comments, do you think Robyn was protecting herself during that audit meeting or protecting something else entirely? So here's what happened. Everyone involved with Sister Wives showed up that day thinking they were finally going to roll cameras on the financial audit of the infamous Coyote Pass land sale. This wasn't just another group conversation or family therapy tape. This was the moment, the one Christine and JANELLE had been fighting for. Fans had been demanding it. Legal teams had reviewed it. Production had spent months prepping it. The conference room was pre-lit, mics hidden, secondary audio rigs already tested. The entire crew was in place for what they expected would be the most watched episode of season 20. This wasn't just TV, it was proof, receipts, closure. Or at least it was supposed to be. And then in walks Robyn. Not late, not rushed, just quiet. Almost too quiet. She kept her eyes away from everyone. Didn't acknowledge the sound tech adjusting cables to her right, didn't say a word to the lawyer she'd already met before, just walked straight in, holding a structured folder under her arm like it held nuclear codes. Nobody thought much of it at first. Then she turned to the showrunner, looked at the cameras, and said it, plain, direct, and with zero room for misinterpretation. Turn the cameras off. You could have heard a pin drop. The hallway crew froze. The soundboard op told people later it felt like all the oxygen got sucked out of the set. The audit day, months in the making, came to a screeching halt, just like that. Mics rolled anyway. Some cameras stayed on secretly, hoping something would bleed through the walls. But that glass conference door, when Robyn slammed it shut, everything behind it might as well have been sealed for good. At least, that's what she wanted. The moment Robyn shut that conference room door, you could almost feel the ripple of confusion roll down the hall. People didn't yell or freak out right away because that would have made sense. Instead, it got weirdly quiet, unnaturally quiet, like the entire crew was waiting for someone to say, "Just kidding," but no one did, because Robyn wasn't joking. She wasn't flustered. She wasn't out of sorts. She came in like someone arriving to a job they didn't especially want to do, but were going to control from beginning to end. That folder she brought, tucked neatly under her arm, zippered dick. No one could see inside, but one of the assistant producers later told a crew member they caught a flash of heavily redacted pages with multiple sections blacked out completely. One cam field operator who happened to be checking a shot near the corner table saw enough to know there were numbers printed beside property codes and something about escrow transfers, but it's what didn't show that caused more alarm. Large blocks blacked out like someone had already decided what was off limits before the meeting even started. She surveyed the room, lights, cameras, cables, everything, and you could practically see the calculation happening in real time. No eye contact, zero small talk. She apparently glanced right over a second boom mic tucked near JANELLE's seat, and that's when she spoke. Turn the cameras off. 4 words, flat tone, dead serious. The showrunner, one of the calmest people on set, tried to repeat what had already been signed and agreed upon. This was a contracted scene. Everyone had reviewed shooting protocols. Legal was on standby. But Robyn didn't move. She countered with, "This is legal. This is private. You don't get this part." And production knew it. Legal teams were contacted within minutes. There were people off in corners scrolling through PDFs of cast contracts, desperate to find anything that could force the scene back on track. And eventually, someone did. Hidden deep in the paperwork, there it was, a clause that specifically required all principal family members to appear on camera for financial discussions involving any property sold under a TLC contract. Translation? The audit wasn't optional. Robyn was in violation. But by the time that revelation reached the top, the chaos was already slipping out of TLC's control. Behind that closed glass door, the family was arguing. Outside, the hallway crew scrambled to boost mic sensitivity just to catch fragments of what was being said. But what really lit the fire wasn't from inside the room. It came from online. That same day, a screenshot started circulating, first in Reddit fan threads, then across TikTok and Facebook groups. It was a partial invoice listing a recent $30,000 charge for custom ironwork and antique chandelier installations. The billing address? Robyn's house. The payment method? A transfer labeled CP Proceeds Escrow. Fans had questions, and this time they weren't waiting for the edit. They started digging, pulling renovation permits, cross-referencing cabinet makers, matching decor seen in previous episodes to vendor websites. Like one Reddit user said, "If they won't show us the receipts, we'll find them ourselves." And it exploded. Hashtags like #AuditGate and #HushSisterWives. Receipts flooded socials. Voice clips from hallway mics were analyzed. Fans began making side-by-side comparisons of what JANELLE lived with versus what Robyn upgraded into. Online theories weren't wild guesses anymore. They were anchored in tangible paperwork, invoices, delivery logs, and footage TLC itself had previously aired. Inside the network, the mood turned fast. Sponsors caught wind of it. One major brand reportedly reached out directly for clarification. Ad dollars were suddenly on the table. Executives labeled the situation a reputational risk at the highest level. And remember, this was supposed to be the tentpole episode of season 20. The entire arc had been building toward this moment. Meanwhile, production crew members who'd been with the Browns for years were heartbroken. One longtime camera op was overheard saying, "We gave our lives to this show, and now she's going to bury it over a spreadsheet." The betrayal didn't just live on screen. It lived in the halls, in the vans, in the production trailers, humming late into the night while editors stared at half-finished cuts and wondered if the whole season would even air. While chaos raged around that slammed glass door, one person watched it all unfold from the sidelines, quiet, calm, and as it turns out, fully prepared. Mary Dott. For months, maybe even years, Mary stayed mostly out of the mess. While Christine left the marriage, while JANELLE fought for answers, while Robyn soaked up screen time with those raw emotional monologues, Mary retreated. We saw flashes of her retreat business, her solo selfies, healing quotes on Instagram. She wasn't throwing haymakers in confessionals. She wasn't in the thick of the land dispute. She just faded. Until she didn't. In the wake of Robyn's camera block, as everyone scrambled to piece together an episode that might still work, Mary made a choice that no one saw coming. Quietly, almost politely, she reached out to a mid-level producer and said, "I have some files." At first, no one was sure what that meant. Was it just notes, opinions? But then the zip drive came through. Emails, spreadsheets, PDFs she'd scanned from years ago, screenshots from her Venmo app showing payment trail details. And then came the kicker, records that went as far back as the early days of Kody Pass planning. This wasn't gossip, this was data, and it painted a very specific picture. There were budgets with line items showing Meri and JANELLE funding things like land prep and soil testing. Meanwhile, Robyn's contributions were simply labeled pending. One email showed Robyn asking if she could delay her payments until we decide what part of the land we're using. Another had Kody replying, "We'll sort it later." That later never came. The pattern was clear. Deferments, vague promises, exceptions made, and it all added up to one undeniable fact. Over time, more and more financial weight had shifted toward JANELLE and Meri, while Robyn reaped the benefits. And now, ironically, it was Meri, so often silent, sidelined, underestimated, who held the receipts Robyn wanted buried most. What made it all even more powerful was how Meri chose to step in. No drama, no confessional rant, no social media shade, just quiet truth-telling wrapped in dates and decimal points. Turns out, while everyone was busy pushing Meri out of the spotlight, she was paying attention more than anyone realized. And now those old, overlooked files might be the very tool that finally cracked Robyn's hold on the storyline. Once word reached Kody that Meri had turned over years of financial receipts to production, all calm was shattered. Until that point, he'd been quiet, stepping back from the spotlight, avoiding post-audit chaos. But the minute he realized editors were stitching together an episode using Meri's files, he stormed into the editing bay like a wrecking ball, mid-cut. No warning, no explanation, just fury. Witnesses say he was shouting, pacing the trailer like he owned the place, demanding to know who authorized it. "You want to destroy this family on national television? Go ahead," he reportedly yelled. "But don't expect me to let you assassinate us with old emails." One of the editors tried to calmly explain that nothing had been finalized, but Kody wasn't hearing it. He issued a flat-out ultimatum. Either the footage focused on healing and moving forward, or he'd walk. No confessionals, no finale moment, total silence. Robyn, who sources say was patched in via speakerphone during the meltdown, jumped in next with her demands, and she didn't hold back. She presented a printed list, typed, formatted, titled with her name, spelling out the terms for her continued participation. First, she wanted full approval over any footage involving the audit, even raw behind-the-scenes audio. Second, she requested the words Kody Pass Audit be removed from titles, teasers, and any promotional materials. Third, and this one caused actual laughter in the room, she wanted producers to provide emotional context for any footage related to the renovations at her home. She insisted the upgrades were for the children's emotional well-being, not luxury, not favoritism, and certainly not financial manipulation. Then came the clearest demand. Meri's files must not be used at all. Robyn argued they were private, even though Meri had voluntarily submitted them directly to production. One producer reportedly leaned back in their chair and asked, "So we're supposed to tell the truth without actually showing it?" Suddenly, it all snapped into focus for the team. This wasn't about emotional safety or family boundaries. This was about controlling the narrative down to the keywords, the framing, the story structure. Robyn and Kody weren't just trying to soften the episode. They were trying to rewrite it entirely. And standing there in the edit bay, producers had a decision to make: compromise the core of the episode or risk losing two main cast members who'd spent years at the center of the show. The stakes had never been higher. As pressure built behind the scenes, with Kody issuing walkout threats and Robyn trying to take over the narrative by force, TLC executives huddled for what insiders described as a no-sleep round of calls and closed-door meetings. Either they bent to Robyn's conditions and sanitized the entire audit episode, or they took the hit, aired the receipts, and let the truth speak louder than the spin. So they did what every smart network does when a reality show hits the edge. They turned to the audience. Private focus groups were shown 2 cuts of the episode. One version, the one Robyn and Kody wanted, was stripped down, vague, full of soft language and blurred explanations. Viewers hated it. Some said it was confusing. Others called it manipulative. Then the second version was screened, the gutsier one. It kept the financial documents, the hallway mic clips, and Mary's confessionals. This version didn't show everything, but it showed enough to make the point. The moment was real, the fallout was real, the imbalance was real, and fans loved it. That was the tipping point. TLC made the call. The season wouldn't be soft-pedaled. Editors restored the audit scenes, patched in commentary from producers to explain what footage had been blocked, and used on-screen cards to summarize what they legally couldn't show. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest, raw, disjointed, and tense, just like the family had become. The aftermath was instant. Christine and JANELLE leaned in. Both agreed to film new wrap-up confessionals. Fans immediately began rallying behind them as the true pillars of the show. Kody and Robyn, on the other hand, never returned to film post-audit interviews. No final comments, no explanations, radio silence. What aired wasn't just a finale, it was a cultural shift. The grip that Kody and Robyn once held over the Brown family narrative finally cracked. Fans watched in real time as the power quietly but completely shifted into new hands. Mary, the archivist, JANELLE, the financial realist, Christine, the emotional backbone. The legacy of Sister Wives didn't end with unity. It ended with receipts. And that audit meeting, slammed door, hidden docs, missing chairs, may just be the moment that forever changed what the show really stood for. Control is a funny thing. They tried to hold it, bury it, block it. But the truth, it still made it to air.